So we're here at the Hobby Center. It's Thursday, November the 18th. Next to me is Mike Belcher, he who owns and operates Belcher Bits out of Ottawa. We've worked together for a number of years. Myself is the local hobby store. Mike is the local producer of things Canadian, resin conversions and decals and forthwith to convert your kits to Canadian markings or to accurize them to make them better Canadian aircraft. He's been doing this for
nearly 30 years.
Nearly 30 years.
Yeah.
So he's been at it as long as I have. We're both getting old. Anywho, we're here today to talk about some exciting new products that Mike's put out. They're releasing this month, and you get to see them here first. We will be carrying them in the hobby store, or you can get them online from Mike. I will leave the link to his site at the bottom of the video if you're out of town and whatnot. But if we're local, we'd love you to come in and buy them here. So let's start. Take it away, Mike.
Well, a couple new products and something new for me this time. The masters for these things have all been done with 3D printers. I'm kind of an old school modeler. I've been doing it for, like I say, many years, but I have got into 3D printing recently, and although it's not a panacea, it's not the be-all and end-all, it's a very valuable tool for producing masters. I still think that the way to go is to make the masters with the 3D printer and then do resin casting in silicon molds for the parts. Resin printed parts are brittle to a certain extent, but they let you do all sorts of neat things which you couldn't do before.
I was going to say, isn't there some really fine 3D print stuff that would be impossible to replicate in a resin cast?
That's right. Yeah.
And it gets better all the time, of course, as all technology does.
Yep. So what I've got here is a couple of projects that were thought about for many years and just never did anything with. The first one is a conversion for the CL-52 to make the only, as far as I know, the only 7-engined aircraft flying, although briefly. Back in the 50s, Canadair was hired to do a modification of the B-47 to put a test engine on the back of the aircraft. So they had a B-47 on loan from the U.S. Air Force. They did some major modifications to put an additional nacelle on the rear fuselage on one side. And that was for testing the Iroquois engine, which was going to be used in the production version of the Aero. So it was modified, took about a year to modify. It flew for a while, I think only about 30 hours in flight in total. And then when the project was done, they turned the B-47 back to the U.S. Air Force, and because of the mods that were done to it, it was scrapped. But it's a really unusual looking aircraft, and
it looks good in the Canadian markings. They put the day glow orange on it. They've got the Canadian round nose on. It looks like we've been flying it forever, but we only had it on loan briefly.
Yeah, just one. But so what I did was I've made the part here, which is the nacelle. It's made in 3 pieces in the set, and a replacement tail turret. The only modification external to the kit is that they took the tail turret off the B-47 and just put a straight ball fitting at the end.
Which you've included?
Which I've included.
So you put that in the back of the
Yep.
fuselage. This is the Iroquois engine, right?
That's right.
Which was intended to go on the Avro Aero. We won't go into that whole story, but this is how they tested it.
And it it just fits on the back. If you can kind of see here, it basically lines up with the flat spot on the end of the fuselage. It's kind of an odd fit because the nacelle was about 3 or 4 degrees up from the horizontal, and also it had a bit of anhedral, maybe about the same. Now, it's gone. There were never any drawings that were released as far as I know, so a lot of this information comes from photographs. There was an article in an old scale models magazine a number of years ago, which I hung on to, when I went to make the masters, that article wasn't really that helpful. So I was able to design these things and print them up, and I include decals with it, which is a nice feature.
Yes, so you can do it up.
There's a couple markings on there which are not applicable to this thing. When I print them, they belong to one of the other projects. But what you get on here is 6 rondelles and the special registration for the tail. Paint the aircraft, paint the tail and the bands around the fuselage with Day-Glo, and put these markings on, and you're ready to go.
And of course, with all your stuff, the instructions on what to do and how to do it are there. And there's some really neat pictures of this aircraft online if you go searching. I'll see if I can include something with this video.
Great. The other thing, which is sort of topical, it's about a month late, but 50 years on from the Cuban Missile Crisis. So this is the Jupiter missile in 72nd scale, and this really precipitated the Cuban Missile Crisis, because when the Americans put these things in Turkey, and in order to get them there so they had the range to hit Moscow, the Russians were, of course, upset, and they put their missiles in Cuba. And the whole thing kind of went downhill from there.
Yes.
So I've done a few 72nd scale missiles, and this is the largest that I do as a kit. Again, the time frame is late 50s, early 60s. They weren't actually used very much in service, and the Americans got rid of them fairly quickly. There's a bit of a potted history in the instructions that talk about these things. And again, the masters for this, with all the ribbing on here, which would have been practically impossible to do old school, but it's very much easier to do with 3D printing. So that's all the masters for this are designed in 3D and printed. And the other thing that I did on this one, which I have done in some missile kits, is making the fuselage is always fun. Trying to make it in 2 halves, and so everything meshes nicely. This one here is actually turned out of a piece of plexiglass.
Okay. So you can see in the package here, there's the plexiglass for the main body, the ring, the nozzles. All of Mike's stuff is beautifully cast, of course.
And it's actually the same decal sheet. The other parts of the decal that was not used for this thing,
Okay.
are used here. Just simple markings, U.S. Air Force and stars and bars.
And in doing so, there's a savings which you pass along to the modeler. If you had to do these individually, it would increase costs, right?
That's right.
So there's the body of the rocket and the markings. There's the booster, the rocket engine, and there's the little support base that it stands on. Excellent work as always, sir.
Thank you.
As I say, we'll have these for sale at the Hobby Center. They'll be in their online store. And if you want to go to Mike direct, I will leave the link to his site at the bottom of the video.
They're not on my website yet, but they will be very
Will
shortly.
be shortly. We're just giving you the look at what's coming out.
These are the national release here in the Hobby Center.
Well, thank you for tuning us to help you present it.
Yes.
Anyway, thanks for watching. We'll see you again real soon. Mike's got more exciting things coming, and I hope he's back when they're ready to go.
Thank you.